Subscribe or they will haunt you.
What was something that happened to you as a child that you didn't realize was scary, creepy, dangerous until you got older? Nanny was supposed to pick me up from an after-school thing I was doing. She was a bit late, so I decided to walk home. Thing is, the school was 6 miles from my house and I had to cross 2 overpasses to get there, which I did while lugging my stuffed backpack. I made it about 5 miles before getting too tired and resting next to the sidewalk near the local mall. Then this guy on a motorcycle asks if I wanted a ride. I said yes, because walking in the surprisingly creepy home stretch to my house, and hopped on his bike. We ended up talking a bit and I found out he was an armored truck driver named Ray. He dropped me off at my house and that was the last I saw of him. My parents didn't find out until a few years later when he showed up at the house, asking for some cash to buy his kid a Christmas present, mentioning how he'd helped me out that time. Dude, I picture him as Jill from Simpsons. I had a kindergarten teacher who always gave me extra attention. He would bring me little gifts, hold my hand, walk me to the bathroom. After a few weeks my mom started asking me questions, and I told her how he would take me into the coat closet for special talks and would give me lots of hugs. My mom took me over to where my dad was working and had me tell him, and then we all drove up to the school and my dad beat the crap out of him. The next day I was put in a different classroom and I didn't see him at school anymore. When I was in 6th grade I walked into a math class for the first time at the start of the year, and he was the teacher. It all just kind of clicked in my brain when I saw him, what he had done and might have tried to do, and why my dad beat him up. Needless to say, I went to the principal and made them call my dad, and when they told us that, since nothing was ever done legally and all that, he would keep teaching, and he was the only math teacher. My dad put me in a different school. I kind of like mom's mental process there. I'm going to have the kid tell dad himself, so dad will go and beat the living shit out of this guy. That's what I'm doing. Logical probably goes straight out the window when a person's kids are in question. She may not even have considered normal channels of answering the situation and instead went straight to caveman code. Bad man touched child, strong dad beat shit out of bad man. Dad agree. A relative was in the hospital and I didn't want to go in, so my parents let me stay in the car. A woman was in the car next to ours waiting in the driver's seat. A man walked up to her car door and pulled it open. I was young enough not to remember why we were at the hospital, but what he said to her is still clear in my memory. "You're gonna drive me back to your place and we're gonna fuck." I remember her yelling something along the lines of, "What the f***? No." And then they started fighting. I got scared and hid where your feet go in the back seat, really not wanting this man to see me. Eventually I heard the car leave. I have no idea what happened and I never told my parents. When I told a friend, he said he was probably her family member and she was crazy. That discouraged me from telling anyone. He wasn't there and didn't hear the man's vicious tone and the woman's terrified one. Maybe it was roleplay. Maybe it's Maybelline. I shouldn't have laughed. I grew up in Detroit and because violence was the norm I didn't realize how terrible some of the stuff I witnessed was. I even thought, cool, a good story to tell the kids at school. One particular story is of when my neighbors across the street, a couple and the sister of the couple, got into a very violent fight. There was so much blood. The husband or boyfriend was beating his lady and kicking her all over her porch. Then when her sister came home midway, she's like, "Hell no," and gets a 2x4 from the alley and starts beating the crap out of the guy. He leaves and gets something else and starts beating her, and the girlfriend is just trying to break it up, but she's getting hit and they're all really beaten up. I lived with my grandparents These sweet old classic Mexican types from the country, and we just all go sit on the porch and watch what the crazy white trash neighbors are doing. And it never occurred to me to call 911 or do anything. When the cops came, I remember thinking that calling them was a good idea. The cops are here now. Somebody must have called them. I wish I had thought of that. When you grow up some places, it doesn't even cross your mind, or it's the nuclear option. When I was younger, we moved into a house in the woods. It wasn't completely finished yet, no screens on the windows, unpaved driveway, just dirt and rocks, etc. We also had a huge wolf spider infestation. Apparently the house was built on the headquarters of all wolf spiders in the US. Wolf spiders can vary somewhat in appearance. Some are gray and very hairy. Some are brown and more smooth. Freaked out when I saw one at first, but then I thought, they look really cool, so as long as they don't bite me, it's okay. Anyways, eventually I just got used to them. Sometimes I'd see a baby wolf spider and just sort of play with it. Otherwise just let it be around while I do whatever I did as a child. Either way, they were everywhere. It wasn't until much later that I saw what young wolf spiders really looked like, and the things I had been playing around with the whole time were brown recluses. When I was 10, I was given some money to go to gas station to get some soda and candy for me and my mom. When I was walking to the store, a Mexican in the old car came driving real slow like. He asked me if I wanted a ride. I said shit yes. He starts asking me about school and stuff starts getting weird. It smells awful in his car. Later on I realized it was black velvet. So we are at a stoplight across from the gas station. I bolt. I run to the gas station and started jumping on the tube to make the bell go off. The old man who owns it came out and threatened to beat my ass until he realized the Mexican was staring at me from his car. Well, he yells some choice expletives at the Mexican and tell me to go inside. Old man calls my mom and she told me to walk home and don't drop our sodas. I could have been kidnapped if not for the surly old racist. The old man who owns it came out and threatened to beat my ass. Hey hi. I imagine him looking like Milo the junkyard owner from the movie Stand By Me. My sister's boyfriend tried to kiss me goodnight and he stuck his tongue in my mouth. I bit his tongue cause well, I didn't understand it. I was 12 and pretty sheltered about that stuff. I realized after I made out with my first boyfriend what he'd been trying to do. Edit. Since people are asking, my sister was 5 years older than me, so she was 17 if I remember right. He was a year younger, so he would have been about 16. She never found out about it. They broke up after a while, but not before she lost her virginity to him and had a big pregnancy scare. I'm still not sure why he thought it was a good idea. Dude was just weird, I guess. Had massive family problems. Last I knew, he was a bisexual man engaged to a lady with 2 kids and another on the way. I still have no idea why it happened. Me and my sister hung out at his mother's place a lot because my parents were busy with volunteer firefighting. They didn't know that we were basically being used as live-in house cleaners for this guy's mother. I'm glad you bit him. Reminds me of the old Amboy creepypasta story. I was driving a shortcut from Twentine Palms, CA to Albuquerque, New Mexico. Twentine Palms is located in the desolate high desert east of LA. The shortcut was all 2-lane road through total nothingness, except for passing through Amboy, California. Amboy is a nearly abandoned town nearly as far below sea level as Death Valley, with a dormant volcano and lava field on one side and a salt flat on the other. It was also, at the time, a hotspot for satanic group activity. So I was driving by myself in the afternoon. I stopped in Amboy and snapped a picture of the city sign just to prove I was there to friends who dared me to take that route to I-40. I got back in my car and proceeded to drive up into the mountain range between Amboy and I-40. Once I reached the top, I am driving north through a canyon with high grass on both sides of the road. Up ahead I see some stuff in the middle of the road. As I approach, I slow down to see a red Pontiac Fiero stop sideways across both lanes. A suitcase open with clothes scattered everywhere, and two bodies laying face down in the road. A man and a woman. I stop 100 feet or so away and the hair on the back of my neck is standing up. Being a Marine, I reach under the seat and pull out a 9mm pistol and chamber around. Something seemed very wrong. It looked too perfect, as if it were staged. An ambush. Was I being paranoid? Something was just wrong. Getting out of the car seemed unthinkable. It was the horror movie move. As I scanned the road, I saw a line I could drive past the guy in the road on his left, swerve to the right side of the woman behind the Fiero, and I'd be on the other side. I dropped it into first gear, punched it and drove the line I planned. I passed the back of the Fiero without hitting it or either of the bodies in the road. I continued forward a couple hundred feet and slowed down so I could breathe and let my heart slow down. As I looked up into the rearview mirror, I saw that the two bodies had gotten up to their knees, and 20 or so people emerged from the tall grass on either side of the road by the car and bodies. At that moment, my right foot smashed the gas pedal to the floor and did not let up until I had to slow down for the I-40 East on-ramp. I will never know what would have happened to me had I gotten out of the car to check on the bodies or stopped my car closer to them. Somehow I do not think it would have been good. Sometimes real life can be scarier than a movie. Not creepy, but a near-death experience caused by stupidity. When I was 7 or 8, me and a couple of buddies ran wild in the local woods every day. Our parents just let us out of the house in the morning and expected us back for lunch and dinner. Apart from that, we weren't supervised at all. We had our camps and our favorite climbing trees, wasps' nests that we kicked, a box of found porno mags, and all the other things that you used to find in the woods in the 1970s. One day Joe had stolen a box of matches from home, so we decided to make a bonfire. A development company years before had tried to make a subdivision in the woods, but had run out of money after a few roads were built. So there were no houses, but there was a big expanse of concrete to build it on. We were dumb, but not dumb enough to burn down a forest. We piled up kindling and sticks and made a good old fire that we took turns in running across, trying to light the soles of our shoes. Then we added logs until we had a pretty sizable blaze going. This started to get boring, so we scouted around the woods for other stuff to burn. Someone threw an old paint can onto the fire, and after a few minutes the lid burst off with a satisfying pop. Wanting to repeat that fun experience, we looked around some more, and eventually someone found a mostly empty gasoline can. It was the old metal kind with a hefty lid. We threw it in the middle of the fire and stood around waiting for the lid to pop off like with the paint can. It sat there for a long time, and then just as we were getting bored and about to go do something else, it blew a flaming smoke ring. This was amazing. We gathered closer to see what else it would do, and the next thing there was a flash of light and a huge boom, and everything went silent and black. We had all been blown flat on our backs and were just coming round, trying to work out what had happened, when we heard adults shouting and the sound of running feet coming from the edge of the woods. Our ears were ringing, our faces were scorched, our hair and eyebrows were singed like in a Charlie Chaplin movie, but we couldn't possibly allow ourselves to get in trouble, so we picked ourselves up and limped away and hid in the woods, watching while the grown-ups cleared up our disaster area. Edit: I just looked up those old woods on Google Maps, and they finally finished the subdivision. The name of the cul-de-sac in which we blew ourselves up is now called Firethorn. I wonder if someone remembered. When I was a kid, there was a guy in my neighborhood who everyone called the Beagle Man. He lived on this weird little side street with only 2 houses on it, his trailer and the burnt-out shell of what used to be a nice house. The rumor was that he kept a pack of beagles locked up in rabbit hutches in his front yard, and if you trespassed on his property, he'd release the dogs, hunt you down, and kill you. Fun stuff. Obviously I had to check it out. I walked over to Beagle Man's house alone and snooped around his yard. Just like the rumor said, They were rabbit hutches crammed full of dogs everywhere. I decided that I was going to go home and make my parents call animal control. So I went to leave when all of a sudden I heard the sound of a pump-action shotgun and a man's voice growl. "What the f*** are you doing here?" Turned around, saw a beagle man standing on his porch with a shotgun and 2 beagles. I f***ing ran. He set the dogs on me and chased me for what felt like forever. He discharged the shotgun a few times, yelling at me for straying onto his property the whole time. It was scary at the time, but I didn't realize that A, I legitimately could have been killed, and B, that he was abusing those poor dogs until many years later. I did tell my parents what happened though. "Hey, guys, guess what happened to me today?" "No." "Guess." And they immediately called the cops. Beagle Man was arrested and all of the dogs were surrendered to ASPCA custody.